Hi, everybody. Welcome. Um, my name my name's Mike, as you can see in the bottom corner of my screen, and this is my first webinar for um, the IBMA Leadership Bluegrass series. And thank you for letting me come in as the Songwriter Committee Chair guy and talk about how songwriters um, should monetize their writing. When I write a song and um, I know that it's set for commercial purposes, like I want this song recorded, whether I'm recording it or whether another artist is going to record it and offer it for money. I want to make sure that I get any money that it earns. Right? It's important. Um, and that's what this is about. I had the idea. And my friends, there is at the very top of the chat, there's a PDF that you're welcome to click on that AI helped me create, which I think is really comprehensive. And there are also two links to social media sites for the IBMA Songwriter Committee. We're trying to get some social media presence up off the ground for IBMA songwriters, for bluegrass songwriters. So please click on those links when you get a chance and follow, like, share. Later today, there's going to be part 4 of a great interview with the Sister Sadie people about one of their recent releases, and just content that we're putting together and trying to regularly get out there to serve the songwriting community in the IBMA. Okay, so that is all out. And I've kind of been hoping that one of my songwriting partners, Dawn, would arrive. I haven't seen her yet. So I'm going to take the ball and run with it. Although she is far more experienced as a working songwriter. I myself am a singer, songwriter, band leader. I write my stuff, I put my stuff out. So I'm in that lane. I don't often have co-writes that I work on go out into the world. So Joe, Dan, and Amanda, I'm going to rely on you guys a little bit more for that today. The number one thing, and I need to really quickly say hi to my buddy Austin, fellow fiddler. Austin, glad you could join us. And Austin, I just noticed that Josh Bell is with us. Little violin joke. Moving on. The very first thing I need to do is register with ASCAP or BMI. They have to know that I'm a working songwriter. I can also register as a publisher, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but they've got to know that I'm a working songwriter, and they want my song to be copyrighted. It's really important for me, I find it really important. As soon as I have a working demo and lead sheet of my song, I copyright it. It's mine. I hope to never have to use that. And Joe, Dan, chime in if you need to on this, but I hope to never have to use that. If I need it, it's really, really good for me to have that copyright. If that song ends up making money for someone else, and I, through my own not being diligent enough, or heaven forbid, for someone not being honest with reporting or registering, then I have the legal oomph or whatever the correct word is to prove that it's my song. So that's where I start. I start by copywriting, and I was Joe, Dan, I'm going to ask you to jump in here real quick. Okay. And explain to the good people here at this webinar a little bit about co-write splits. Can you help me explain that a little bit? Because that's not an area I'm
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
well versed in. Thanks.
I'm Joe Dan with Billy Blue Music Publishing, and we actually right now in our building we have 5 co-writes going on currently. So it's actually the most that it's ever been at one time in our building. So we've got a lot of people back there writing right now. Um, Publisher splits or writing splits for co-writes are typically just split. If it's you and another writer, that's split 50-50. There's times that people want to they'll try to count words or say, well, I contributed this more, I contributed that more, and that's really not a thing that we do here. We just say if you're in the room and you're writing, then you split that 50-50, and 3 ways would be 33 and a third and on down the line. Um, that's typically how that works. I don't know, Mike, how in depth you want to get, but there are things such as co-write, there's your co-writer might have a publishing they might be signed to a publisher, and then they may have a co-publishing agreement, which would then make your 50%, 25%, and then so on and so on. So we could get, they can get kind of complicated, but to keep it simple is co-writing splits are normally just split 50-50 or like I said, 3 writers in a room, 33 and a third, and then so on and so on.
Thank you, Joe Dan. Are there official forms that are available from, say, a publishing company like yourself or from ASCAP or BMI that you can fill out co-writing agreements?
So do you mean like co-write just to fill out like the splits or
Yeah.
so like if you're with a PRO, which was ASCAP, let's just say for this sake, ASCAP or BMI, it is suggested that once you do write a song, you go on to that website and go ahead and log that. Log the song and it will give you, it should. I don't personally, because I'm not personally a songwriter per se. But it should prompt you to say what the splits are on there. So that they'll need to know that. You kind of as when you're in the room, you and your co-writer will discuss that. And like I said, it typically falls to a even split. Um, there's not necessarily a form. We at Billy Blue have a form, but I fill that out. So our songwriters will turn the songs into me with all the info. So they turn the song into me, and let's say Amanda wrote with you, Mike, and Amanda is writes for Billy Blue. I already know her pub info, but she needs to make sure to give me your publishing info because when she turns that in, I do actually have a sheet that I fill out and send to our admin company, Clearbox Rights, and then they're the ones that's responsible for putting stuff onto the PRO websites, the MLC, registering songs, copywriting songs, etc. So it's always really important with your co-writers to ask them what their publishing information is and to get it correct on the front end because it really is a pain after the fact to go back and try to correct anything. So don't let me get too far ahead, Mike. I don't want to.
No, that's perfect. I just wanted to make it, there we go. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is well aware. All of the songwriters here are well aware that co-writes need to be decided right away. And your PRO, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that there are some novice writers in the group, or that there will be some novice writers that will be watching this later on. I want to make sure that everyone knows that PRO stands for Performing Rights Organization.
Yes.
We have BMI, we have ASCAP. What else do we have? CSAC.
CSAC, yeah.
And I think that's the three that we have.
Those are the big three. Yeah.
Yep. So the Performing Rights Organization. I myself am with BMI, and a little tidbit: I have a very common name, Mike Mitchell. Amanda Cook might have a little experience with this as well. So at BMI, I chose to be Michael John Mitchell because it can, and be careful, guys, it can get mixed up. Mm-hmm. There's if you go to iTunes, there's 3 Mike Mitchells all on my channel, and only one only one bluegrass guy, so it can get mixed up really quick. So I'm Michael John Mitchell, and then I'm also a publisher at BMI, and our family business is the Floyd Music School, as you can see on my logo here in the chat. So the Floyd Music School LLC is the publishing company, and both of those are registered with BMI. And I can recall filling out my forms for my songs, and this is after copyright. I've copyrighted with Library of Congress, which is a website form. Now I'm going over to BMI to register my work. I'll be honest, I'm not doing that until it's getting recorded. I don't really need to. I'm not that fastidious. I probably should be, but I'm not. But if there's a recording getting ready to be released, I make sure I go to BMI and I put that in there. And yes, if there's a co-writer, they have 50%. And I need to know and this is important too, guys. I need to know my co-writer's assigned name with their PRO. And if my co-writer has their own publishing, I need to know that. And I need to make sure that the spelling is exact, capital letters, spaces, all of this stuff, because these are they're web forms. So, one wrong character and someone may not get paid. Yes, Jodan.
Yes, I wanted to, that's a great point because that happens all the time. And the way BMI or ASCAP or any of those the performance rights organizations help to avoid that is when you sign up if you are signed up with ASCAP or BMI or CSAC or are planning on doing so, they will assign you what's called your IPI number. And that is basically like your social security number as a songwriter. And that's how that they will distinguish between all the different Mike Mitchells or the Amanda Cooks is everyone has a unique thing. So it is good to have that handy, especially myself. I will try to get, if one of our writers writes with someone that I'm not familiar with, I will go ahead and try to track down that IPI number and turn it in as well. I try to get everything accurate on the front end. It's really important. And Mike, you're correct too on you don't have to log everything when you write it because if it's not licensed, then there's technically not a performance. Now, if you're going out and playing your own songs, it might be a good practice to go ahead and license it if you're playing your own songs because there's a chance it could get tracked. But yeah, Mike, that's absolutely correct too. There's no need unless there's a license or anything like that. So, but yeah, to recap though, the IPI number is very important. Have that handy just so you can pull it up and send it at any time.
Yes. And so on the other side, from the label perspective, when we are doing mechanical licenses and when we complete um, album content, so when we're completing what needs to go on the back of that artist record, having that correct information to complete those licenses to make sure that the songwriter is paid correctly is very important. I try to get IPI. A lot of the artists that are out on the road, they don't have that with them or whatever, and they're texting me this while they're driving to the next gig to tell me who the publisher is and all of that information. Happens a lot. But having that clear information from the writer from the very beginning, also communicating that to your artist that you're pitching, which I may be getting out of track here, but making sure that when you're pitching that song, you're providing the artist that information up front. Correct name, correct publishing, and IPI if you can give it, because it's a lot once that album is printed and we find out that the artist didn't know that there was a co-writer on there. Now we have this really big, expensive correction to make on an album cover. So yeah, those details do matter greatly.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Welcome, Dawn.
Hey, hi, everybody.
Everyone, this is Don Kenney, my good friend and regular co-writer. And I thought that we might, can we just pedal back a little bit? And with introducing Dawn, can we start a fictitious journey of a song?
Why?
Dawn and I and now I get to bring all this. Now I can kind of follow the flow of the meeting that I was hoping to facilitate here.
And I
Don and I,
apologize. I was misinformed on the time, so
it's okay.
my apology.
EST. Are you in Nashville now, or are you in Boston?
I'm in Nashville.
Yeah, we have time zones, and that's how we all go. It's all good, sis. So Don and I wrote a song called "Making Hay" that some of you may be familiar with. Amanda and I produced that song in the Mountain Fever studio, and I released it. And it started to make some money. It earned some income, and someone that works with Joe Dan helped me keep track of that income. And that's where this whole thing all comes together and where we're all tied in together. So I thought that it would be really cool for us to follow a fictitious journey of a song called Making Pay. Yeah, I'll apologize for future dad jokes, but they are going to happen. So let's roll with this. So Don and I write a song. It's called Making Pay. We have some type of functional, decent demo, and we're not here to talk about demos. We don't want to go down that garden path. We have some type of a functional demo, and we've decided to copyright that song, which is really important. And Don and I both own the artistic rights to that song. It's ours. It's our thing.
We also owned our publishing on that.
Right. And we've gone through that. Now Don and I we each register that song with our respective PRO, Performing Rights Organization. And we make sure that everything is spelled correctly, for heaven's sakes. And guys, what is the number that the PRO assigns us again?
IPI.
IPI.
There we go. So that's done. And
you know what that stands for, Mike?
No.
IPI stands for Interested Party Information.
Well, that's interesting.
That's very interesting. And I always think of it as my social security number in the music industry, and that everything is tagged to that. So if you think about it like that, when you're with your co-writer, you want to make sure you get not their social security number. You could get that, probably shouldn't have. But to get their IPI, that's really important to get it right. It sounds like I don't want to interrupt you, and I apologize if you had mentioned this before, but getting someone's name right is incredibly important in your PRO registration. And I found that with some of my co-writers, they have multiple registrations over the years, like the initial time they set their account up. So it's important to, I can't emphasize enough, to get that IPI right. So I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, you're not interrupting. We're doing this together. So thank you. And everyone on this meeting, you're hearing us kind of say a couple of things really over and over again, because we've all run into this. Because there's a whole lot of us doing this. Okay, so the song Making Pay is going to be recorded, and it's going to be recorded at a recording studio for a record label. And isn't that fine and dandy? And
I'm excited. I got a cut.
That's right. And if you're interested in songwriting at this level, that's your goal, my friends. I have points of view and opinions on whether or not you should consider performing them yourself and starting a band, depending on the day and time. But I digress. So Amanda happens to run a record label and a recording studio. Amanda, what is the next step in the journey of this song, Making Pay? What is the next step with making sure that everything, all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and everything for publishing and mechanical licensing? Take it away, sis.
So we would ask the artist, like I said a minute ago, who's the writers on the song, who's the publishing. Most of the time they don't know the publishing. So I recommend for songwriters to share that information as well when you send your demo or you send your lyric sheet or whatnot. Having the writer name and publishing up at the top really makes it easy for the artist as well as the label. When we finish the master, and so the way that we work here at Mountain Fever, when we finish the master, we print off that master and we create a spreadsheet, and I request those mechanical licenses from the songwriter at that point. So generally, it's well before the album comes out. And sometimes before the singles are dropped. That's our goal, is to get that license done before anything's released commercially. But I just reach out directly to the songwriter. So sharing your contact information at the top of that lyric sheet as well comes in really handy, your email address or phone number. I send that license to the writer, all completed. We set up the album content sheet, your name and your publishing goes on that album. And then we go forward, release the project, and then we pay mechanical license fees. Now, we do it a little bit differently, I think, than other labels, but what we do is, as those sales are accounted for, as the artists purchase product from us, we then credit those songwriters. So it used to be where we did it every quarter, but sales have went so far down that we're now paying those on a 6-month time period. So every 6 months, we go through our whole entire catalog, credit all of those artists' spreadsheets, and then send checks to the writers. I may have fast forwarded through that very quickly, but it is that simple when we have all the information that we need.
Thank you, Amanda. I've got a couple of questions for you.
Oh,
okay.
Dawn, go ahead and go first.
So at what point in that process, Amanda, do you then have an ISRC number?
So we get the metadata when the master is completed. Okay. So I have all of that embedded data when that master is out of the studio, and we run it through our DDP creator on our side, and we have that full embedded master sheet, as I call it.
So, and that would appear on the mechanical license. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
why that's important to us as songwriters is we want to make sure our PRO registration is updated with that, because that is the social security number for that particular sound recording.
Yes.
And that's how our PROs are going to pick that up. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Yeah.
You can register the song before it's recorded in your PRO, but you want to make sure you update it with that sound recording, because that's where the money will be coming from.
Right. And then also you can, on your PRO, you can also list who the performer of that is. So that even gives more detail for later on to make sure that those funds are being directed correctly. And all of that is very clear and legible on our mechanical sheets or licenses. Right. Mm-hmm.
Are you issuing your own mechanical license? So you would send that to me and I would fill it out, or you ask me for mine?
It depends. Like I fill them out. Mountain Fever, we have our own sheets that we use that to initiate the process. So I'm very proactive of getting those done. I want to get those done, and I want that spreadsheet to be nice and clean. And so that way, when I make payments on that 6-month window, I've got zero balances on everything. I'm super type A. I want everything zero balanced out. So I am very proactive of sending those very early in the process, as soon as I have the master. And then if you have a publishing company like Clearbox Rights, I know Joe Dan works with those, that company, they have their own formats that they like to use. And of course, we then accept those. And a few other writers that I work with, they want to use their own format, which is fine, as long as it holds all the same information as what I initiate with. Right.
That's great. I think it's important for the song, as a songwriter, to familiarize yourself with mechanical licenses,
Mhm.
understand what those numbers, those letter codes, ISRC numbers, the IPI, that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
maybe just have your own so that you're familiar
Yes.
with it. So when you get Amanda's or
Mhm.
Joe Dan's or comes something from Pine Castle, the labels in our genre,
Mhm.
that you're not unfamiliar with it. I'm just kind of throwing that out there as a suggestion.
So let me kind of recap and paraphrase a little bit. So the writer, the writers of the Making Pay, we've communicated with the record label that is recording that song and
Mhm.
that is going to be publishing it, offering it for sale.
Mhm.
Right. And we've asked that publisher, that record label, to provide us with a number called ISRC. Does anybody know what that one stands for?
I don't.
Dawn, Kenney.
I'm just
I
going to
do.
Google it.
Dawn, you're at the head of the class. What does it stand for?
See, yeah, I always work towards that A, Mike. International
Yeah, go ahead.
International Standard Recording Code.
Wow. That's all I
Yeah.
can say is wow.
A plus.
And the reason
And
that
it's
we want,
a 12-digit number typically.
yep,
Yes.
and it costs $25 a piece. I know that. I know what it all costs, but I digress. So the writer, we want that ISRC number, even though we're not necessarily the people that are recording that at all and performing the song on a recording. We want that ISRC number because that in turn goes into our registration with our PRO.
Mhm.
There's a field
To
there
be clear,
that asks for it, and we want to type that in so that we can help track it, so that we, the writers, can see how it's doing. Yes.
yes, and to be very clear about that, it is not, that number is not the identifier for the song in general. It's the number for that specific song recording.
Recording. Mhm. Yeah.
Recording.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
when let's say John Smith, the artist on Mountain Fever, whenever that's played on Sirius XM, I mean that's what ASCAP and BMI and CSAC are looking for, but it's
Right.
only going to apply to that. So if you have that song cut again, which wouldn't that be wonderful? If you got one of those that everybody wants to record, the next version of that song would have its own unique identifier.
Mhm.
Yes. And when I first started, just as a little aside, I explored the possibility of my videos for my songs having a second ISRC number. And I can do that if I want. I can embed a second ISRC number for a video of my song because it counts as another performance, even though
Even
it's
though
the
it's the
same,
same recording.
even though it's the same audio.
Very cool.
Yeah. But then I would have to, pay YouTube a lot of money to get a lot of plays of my video. So I never bothered. Okay. So we're good with that. And we're also communicating, us songwriters, with our fictitious song Making Pay. We're communicating with the record label on how many copies of that, physical copies, that they are selling. And for is it still $37 for every 1,000 copies, Amanda?
No, it's actually
Changed.
it's changed. It's 0.124. So that's the new per song or per purchase on each track. So it's
Okay.
12 cents. It's 12 cents instead of 9 cents. So yeah, do the math on that.
Okay.
We, once the artist, so that would be coming from the artist. So not
Yeah.
really the songwriter, but the artist is the one that's responsible for making sure that those numbers are, so if you're independent artists, I did see that question on the chat here. If you're an independent artist, you're responsible for making sure that your songwriter is paid that
Yeah.
way. Those are for physical sales, downloads, and physical album sales. So as we receive payment for the product that we order for our artists, so say we order Mike Mitchell 300 copies of Making Pay, he pays us for those 300 copies. We then credit our spreadsheets and we pay the songwriters. So
Nice.
as those are sales, so we are considering those sales. The artist may not have sold them yet, but that's the cleanest way to keep up to make sure the songwriter is taken care of. When we sell the artist product, they pay us for it, we pay the songwriter.
Fantastic. And
Mhm.
that's simple. That part's
Yes.
easy.
Yes.
And we will get in, we'll get into tracking broadcast and streaming royalty here in just a minute.
Yeah.
So we're up to date. Now, our song has been recorded, and it's going out into the world. And our artist is performing it, 5 nights a week on huge stages in front of thousands of people every night. And
that's a good cut.
and they're buying their record from the record label, the publisher, or they've made their own. And if they've made their own, it's kind of, if you're an independent artist, you're doing it all. You're doing everything that Amanda just said the record label does. It still has to be done. There's no differentiation, my friends. If you're DIY, then your DIY is also DIA, doing it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just it doesn't change. It's not recognized any differently. Your record label is a partner that you go in to help you sell your stuff. Mm-hmm. So moving forward from that, it's out in the world and it's making some money. It's probably not lost on anyone here in this room that satellite radio pays a decent amount of money for the music that they broadcast. So there is opportunity for music to actually make some money. All terrestrial broadcast, it all makes money. And so does streaming, even down to Spotify. I think, and this is where I'm going to be talking with Joe Dan, and he's going to come in here and say a lot more than I know, because he's probably forgotten more than I'll ever know. But it all makes a little bit of money. And I kind of think, as a recording artist, it doesn't matter what broadcaster plays my music, whether it's Joey Black at Sirius XM, or whether it's the guy at at Virginia Tech radio station, whoever's there this semester that spins me one time. It's all important. I want to keep track of all of it. And as a songwriter, that's what I want as well. And that's what my PRO, that's what it does for me. Joe Dan, can you take over for me?
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
at that point, yes, your PRO will track your anything streamed from. Well, they'll do a lot of things. But PROs operate. I'll just kind of back up and give just a base knowledge of what I know of PROs. They will do anything from, if your song's played, they issue blanket licenses is a big way that they collect money. So you'll notice if you go into like a bar or a restaurant, a lot of times you'll see a sticker on the door when you open it, and it'll say ASCAP, BMI, CSAC on there. And that just means that their restaurant and that establishment is covered by what they call a blanket license.
Mm-hmm.
That's typically based on, there's a lot of different parameters of how much that they collect. It's the size of the venue, how many all the way down to how many speakers, how many people it will hold, and stuff like that. So they'll collect what's a blanket license. So anytime your song is played, you're going to get a piece of however much that blanket license was for that establishment. So they collect that for that. They'll also collect for film and TV. So they will gather if your song is ever played, if Making Pay is on a game show one day, you never know. Theme song. Um, they will also collect that. So let's say the Game Show Network for fun, they'll have to submit what's called a cue sheet, and it will actually say if it's a theme song, it's going to get paid more than if it's just bumper music in and out of commercial breaks and things like that. So they have a weighted scale that way to collect your money. And then, of course, what we were just talking about, like Sirius XM and terrestrial radio, they will collect upon that as well. How I gather that PROs pay out, it's not down to the exact penny. And tracked is what they do is they bring in a lump sum of money and then they track your songs via that ISRC and then you as your IPI as a writer, and they track and they try to see a percentage of what is being played, where it's being played, and especially for radio, this is how it works, and then they pay you out accordingly. Now, when it comes to your cue sheets and things like that, that's very easily tracked because that has to be individually tracked. I actually worked at BMI before here, and I was in the film and TV department. So I had to do all the cue sheets and stuff, and that is it's a labor of love. It's a very much every tedious little thing. So they do track that very specifically. Um, I don't know. Does that answer kind of that's just the overall scope of what the PROs will do for you. And also goes back to the importance of that ISRC and the IPI numbers because that is how they're going to constantly track you and what percentages you're getting played, how many spins you're getting, whether that, Mike, you're correct, whether that be Joey Black or Virginia Tech's guy there on campus spinning. I mean, they're going to all these radio stations should be contributing their spins and submitting that to those PROs.
They
And
should be.
yeah, they
There's
should
other
be.
Should be.
There's other sources too. Like I see in my statement, I got there's a couple songs of mine that popped onto a JetBlue playlist, and
Right.
like from old songs, and those I'm still getting, 12 cents here and there, for those songs, and that's showing up in my ASCAP statement. So yeah, there are some other sources that where you'll see that coming from.
Right. It's and it's very random. What we've seen, Caroline and I, my banjo player and myself, we have songs that we've written that are being played in Cracker Barrel all the way, all over the United States, as well as Starbucks. And we found that it's very random. So obviously it was registered correctly, it was mechanically licensed correctly, all those things, ISRC codes, but she will just randomly get these checks from BMI. And it's pretty common. We hear all the time that, these songs are played in Cracker Barrel. So we know that it's pretty often, but it's really random as to when we get those checks. So I don't know. I don't know actually how that calculation and how and when it's done. It's just a nice surprise when those checks come in the mail.
The mailbox money. So
yeah,
the randomness, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe Dan, but the randomness has to do with the corporation that owns Cracker Barrel and their reporting.
Right. Yes, that's correct. So as they report the different establishments as they report, then that will go to ASCAP, BMI. Then they have to do their, it's all the filters. They have to then kind of go there. Then they have to divvy it out. Well, like for instance, BMI is paying out. They pay out. I know they paid out February. I know they're paying out this month. Whereas ASCAP pays out differently and CSAC pays out differently. So they all pay out in different quarters.
Schedules.
I think CSAC is now monthly. I think that they do. So that's why it is random. And then and it also is based on like Amanda, you mentioned like Starbucks. Well, Starbucks, well, I don't know if this is a great example, but like or Cracker Barrel, like those establishments are there, some are bigger, some are smaller, some are in an airport, some are so those licenses are going to vary what they're paying. I would assume that these big corporations just say, here's a bunch of money, we're covered
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But that may not be the case. And so that's why the it's random. I will say this too, and I don't know if this throws a wrench in anything at all, but do your research too on your PROs, and what they collect and what they don't collect.
Mhm.
Because some PROs are better at collecting for certain genres than others, and they go back and forth. It's never, again, it's not an exact science. BMI will
Right.
always tell you that they're better than ASCAP. ASCAP will say, well, better than BMI. So
Right.
as a writer, just do your research, and to ask around, ask questions and things like that. They're not, each PRO is not set to a scale. There's no like statutory rate that at all. So it is very,
Yeah.
as Amanda said, very random.
Random. Yeah.
Okay, which
So
leads me. Go ahead, Don.
I'm wondering if we can maybe address the rest of Austin's question. He's asking about he embedded ISRC codes in a single, published it, and it was played on terrestrial radio. But he's asking about the MLC, and I haven't heard anybody mention the MLC.
Yeah, we're going to get there, and we are going to have an answer period that Lee is going to facilitate for us. So,
great. Okay.
So moving on, Making Pay is actually it's on Sirius XM satellite radio. It's being played on FM stations and public radio. Public radio. Let me just say that again, public radio.
Amen.
All right. Boy, I could, yeah. And it's being played everywhere. And the record label actually somehow, or because it's being performed on these stages, these massive stages in front of these huge audiences, some game show picked it up and it became a theme song for a game show. This song Don and I wrote is really making pay, and we're tracking it, and we have one PRO organization that we're working with. We need to have. Are you really going to miss this? We need to have more than one, don't we, Joe Dan?
Correct.
We need to have Sound Exchange, and we need to have MLC.
Yes. So Sound Exchange will deal with the artist, not necessarily the writer.
Okay.
That is, I kind of view Sound Exchange as the PRO for the artist. They collect for the artist. MLC, absolutely. And as streaming and things are taking off, the MLC is very important for you to register. It's almost like another version of PRO, but it's just one basic database. And what it will do to and what I'll do before this is over is they on their website they have a video. It's like a 1 minute video that's kind of straight to the point. I'll put that in the comment section so that way if anybody wants to look further into what the MLC does, it's ever evolving, just as technology and as the way people consume music is ever evolving. But to the basis of what MLC does is when you submit your song there, which you need to do, it's probably a good practice if your song's up on one of your PRO sites to go ahead and make sure it's up on the MLC as well. They will assign that song in particular with its own number, and that way, once things are being streamed, they can track it. And the way that I think that this all kind of came about, or what I've gathered, is that anybody can just go onto Spotify and upload your songs up there. And so eventually people were saying, well, I'm not getting paid. Spotify, you're not paying me. Well, Spotify said, we don't know Johnny Joe from Arkansas that has this group. We don't know. We don't have any in. We don't know this. And so basically what happened is the music industry got together and formed what is now called the MLC, Music Licensing Collective. And they have the database now to say, okay, well, here we go. Now everyone can submit their songs on here. We will assign them with a number. And now Spotify has no choice but to say, they can't say we don't know anymore. Now there's a way to track it. And so that's what they're doing in a nutshell.
Yeah.
In a
Actually
nutshell.
going back in time too. They're actually going back time, and
Mhm.
I don't know how far back, but they're collecting some of those royalties that you should have had. And
That's
they're going
yep,
back and capturing past stuff, which
that's
is
correct.
so important to register. Yeah.
Right. And
Um,
they basically made the DSPs, as we call them, but the digital service providers, what they did is they said, okay, well, here's what we'll do is we'll either sue for each copyright infringement that we can find, which there would have been a lot, had someone
Mhm.
just entered stuff onto Spotify that they didn't know. Or what we'll do is we'll say, you DSPs as a collective, come together, help us pay for this database thing that we're going to do and organize it, and then we'll call it even here. And so that's kind of how the MLC came about. Um, yeah, and so that's in a nutshell. But again, I will put some info down in this too, so people can take away some stuff with the MLC. And like I said,
Mhm.
it is constantly evolving too. They are collecting more and more as people are consuming music in different ways. They are trying to make sure that that is monetized.
And they're also helping sponsor our World of Bluegrass, or they have been for the last couple of years. So we
They're great.
appreciate them very much.
Yeah.
I know, just speaking as a writer and an artist, and that's exactly why I thank you guys, Joe Dan, for setting me straight about Sound Exchange, because I'm that's where I go as an artist, not as a writer.
Right.
Yeah. So thanks for that. Um, we've written a song and we've seen it through its recording and all of its performing and its broadcasting, and it's on television and our big famous song. And as songwriters, we are completely empowered and enabled to track all of the money that it is making that we are due. And that's a lot of work, and it should be easier. But it isn't. And that's why, that's why we're here. That's why we're here today. I want to bring everyone to the very top of the chat window. Floyd Music School, that's myself. At 11:51 a.m., I uploaded a PDF. I hope that everyone can get that. Um, that was and yes, Lee had asked me, are you sure that's what you want people to have? And I said, yeah, I think that is what I want people to have. That was my outline for this webinar. And if you download that, there's a bunch of helpful places to go. They're not links. I mean, you'll have to actually type these things into your browser, but everywhere you need to go for all of this stuff is itemized in that original PDF. And I'm going to say one more time, as from the IBMA Songwriter Committee, please click on the subsequent links for our new Facebook and Instagram um, channels from IBMA Songwriters, and follow us and share the stuff. It's a little tricky. I don't own those social media sites, and I'm limited as to what I can share on them. So what I need is the songwriter community to really help raise awareness of those and get some interaction going, so that we can have a one-stop place for bluegrass songwriters in the IBMA to lifts all
we
boats.
support each other. We
Yes.
support each other. I've always said to Mike, any success I've had is because I've been fortunate to have people who believed in me and mentored me and were available for me to ask questions to, or provide guidance if I was, you know, I had the wrong idea about something and I should have been doing something a little differently with regards to the things that we're talking about. Um, so the IBMA for me in the songwriter community has been a critical piece of me moving my career forward as a writer. And I also want to mention I did just pop something in the chat. It's a document, and it's the document with a lot of links in there. It gives you links to a couple different split sheet um, guides from all the different pros, how to register your works, links to the copyright resources. So that's all there. Feel free to grab that and click on those links. You can learn a little bit more. But if you want to look at some different split fee sheet examples, that's all there in that document.
Fantastic. Lee, would you care to moderate the Q&A with my thanks? And you're muted.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. So let me start with Austin's question. I think it's been partly answered, maybe mostly answered, but maybe there's some other comments on here. And I'll just read it through. What if you release independently? Is the MLC where an independent artist would collect? I think you've addressed that. For example, I embedded ISRC codes in a single, published it, and it was played on terrestrial radio. Would these plays be tracked? I also want to clarify if there is a separate income stream from Sirius XM play for songwriters versus non-interactive play royalties that label and artists typically collect. So if there's any other comments on that, let's start with there.
Who
Well,
wants to jump in?
yeah, well, that's a lot on the label side, I would think. That question is more geared towards that.
I think the answer is no. There's not a separate income stream from satellite airplay that goes to the performing to PRO for writers.
That's correct. Yes.
That is correct.
On the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the income stream to the artist is sound exchange. They're performing the featured artist. So
Right.
whoever's name is on the album cover, that's where sound exchange goes.
Yeah, and for the second part of your question, Austin, my fiddle friend, if you have ISRCs embedded in your metadata, which you absolutely have to, your mastering engineer should be doing that, and it's played on terrestrial radio, it should be tracked. But that is entirely the business of the terrestrial radio. If they're on their game and if they're serving us well, and they're filling out, whether it's, I think Spinatron is still in existence. There's all kinds of services that they should be filling out. They also, your terrestrial radio should be going to all of the PRO organizations and giving them a monthly list. Here's everything we played. Here's the ISRC number for everything we played. They should be doing it in a perfect world.
Right.
But if you're an artist writer like Mike, who writes most of his own songs, Mike's got his sound exchange, and he also has his songwriter piece of it. And if he's self-published, he has his publishing piece of it.
Right.
So can I clarify? That's kind of the situation that we're in right now, where there's a song that's gotten played a bunch on Sirius XM that one of the bandmates in our group wrote, and we're aware of, and we have like a deal with the label where we're doing the typical 50-50 sound exchange split, which I am more familiar with from working with another band. But what I'm not familiar with is the side where if there's a band member in the group that wrote the song, is there something separate from sound exchange we should be tracking or keeping being aware of?
Absolutely. Who has the publishing on that song?
That's it.
The songwriter.
So he owns his own publishing.
Yeah.
So he would need to have everything, everything that we mentioned. He would need to have sign up affiliated with a PRO. He would need to do all that, and he basically will act as his own publisher. But that needs to be tracked. Absolutely.
Right. So all that will go through his PRO for the radio play. And the sound exchange, that's a little bit of a tricky spot, because if you're doing 50-50 with a label, that's the artist share. Like, that's your artist share. So that would be band money from sound exchange, totally separate from the songwriter. Two very different things.
Yeah.
And then, so in this case, the songwriter share is going to go 100% to his publishing company or whatever. Publishing.
Well, his publishing. So
Yeah.
his song. There's two pieces of that pie.
Right.
There's the publishing half of that pie of the songwriter royalties, and there is the songwriter share. So he will get his songwriter share, but he's also with the publisher. He should be getting the publishing share.
And those will both
Is
come
he-
through BMI
Yes.
or
Yes.
his thing. Okay,
His pro.
got it.
Also come through mechanicals too, if the label, I don't
MLC.
know what the deal is, but the MLC is well, correct. And then
Right.
any mechanicals too, if the label, even though he, as a member of the band, he's also a songwriter. So
Right.
if they issue that mechanical license, they're going to have to reach out to him and issue that license because he is acting as his own publisher. So
Right.
that should have happened unless there is some sort of a deal that you have a publishing and a artist agreement of some sort. That would be the only reason that might not happen. But he should be issued a mechanical license for that song, even if you guys are still on that label. Is that correct, Amanda?
That is correct. And mechanical license payments to writers are on sales, not radio, sales of product. So that's a separate thing, but still a piece of the pie. But even if after you leave the label, unless the contract is ended and you re-own that master as a band, that gets in a whole nother thing. But yes, that label would still owe you songwriter royalties on that.
Now, can I ask how significant that is, given how significant like an artist share is on Sirius XM? Is the songwriter share? I mean, do you have a general number of what that might be for XM?
Significantly less.
Significantly less. Yeah.
Yeah.
The songwriter on purchases, on sales, the songwriter is paid 0.124, so 12 cents per sale on that song.
Right.
For example, in our example, let's say Making Pay got to number one and hung in there. Let's say it charted on Bluegrass Unlimited for 16 months. If you're as one of two writers on that, I could see as much as $500 with my own publishing over time in a cumulative way. That's big money in bluegrass.
Yeah.
And as
so, is that what you're asking?
Well,
Austin,
so for example, the artist share right now I know is like something around $20 for the artist and $20 for the label, or somewhere around there. And we have a song that's done pretty well for a couple months now. But I don't know if our songwriter is like aware. I know that he's published it. I know he's like more because he does songwriting outside of bluegrass. But I don't know if he's aware that this Sirius XM stuff might be generating income for that. I just have to check in with him. Of course, I don't know about it.
Yeah, but that's songwriter is separate from artist. That's
right.
two very different things.
And if he's not aware, give him the link to this webinar, and then he can become aware and empowered and have all the tools that he needs. Which brings us to
this might be a good segue into Sarah's question. There you go. Take it away, Mike.
Exactly. Which brings us to Sarah's question. If you learn after the fact, if you've written a song after the fact and you learn that it's generating income, the recorded performance of this song is generating income. Your question is, if a band didn't correctly set up their songs upon launch, Sarah, is it okay with you if I change that to the writer? Great. Or writers. Great. Thank you. So if the writer or writers didn't correctly set up their songs upon launch, is there an expiration time frame to backfill these PRO registrations and sound exchange, or have they missed the boat and will they just get paid moving forward? I'm pretty sure you can go back and backfill it, but Joe Dan, I know that you know the details of that, so please.
Yeah, I know. I believe now this has changed over the years, but your PROs will normally backdate. They will go back retro and get, I think it's 9 months. So 9 months, they can still go back and collect on your behalf as far as a songwriter. The MLC, I want to say it's on their site, so don't misquote me. I want to say it's 4 years, and then it falls into what they call a black box. That money still is there, and what happens is they distribute that money back into the industry via publishing percentage. So, like your majors are going to get a lot of that money, but I think it is up to 4 years. It may be five. It's one or the other. But that money will sit there and ready for you to claim up to that far. Your PROs, I believe it is 9 months is about as far as they'll go back and track. I hope that answers it.
That does answer it. Thank you, Joe Dan. You
So
are
I,
a
I'll
wealth
throw
of
out,
information.
I'll throw out a question here. This is not a world that I operate in at all, so I'm a little gobsmacked at how complicated it is. And this might be like a third rail question, but like, what do you see? Is AI going to come in and start doing having an effect on how all this stuff gets tracked and quantified and divvied up?
Uh, Absolutely. I think so. I mean, that's why I say the MLC. I can't. I have just great things to say about them. And as we are consuming music in a different way, and as the growth of AI, I could easily see them implementing that kind of stuff. I believe CSAC at one point there was one season where they required us to actually, if we had a master that had the ISRC attached to it, to send, even as a publisher, to send that master into CSAC because I believe that they were more than likely using AI to help sound match and to better track songs. Um, I the AI will be a whole topic. I know that we could really jump down the rabbit hole with that. As far as this side of things, though, I would encourage AI because it could easily track. It could track more efficiently as it progresses. It can progressively track and locate money better as well. So, but yeah, I do see that. I do see that happening. It's already happening, I'm sure, but I see it growing as well.
Yeah.
Big Brother. But that's Big Brother in a good way,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's
It's a tool. It's a tool we can use.
yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else?
I think that's all the questions I see in the chat.
Let me say, first of all, thank you, Joe Dan, who's also a member of this year's songwriting committee. He and I and Amanda and Dawn, who are member friends of this committee, we have a great songwriting track lined up that we will be putting together. And we hope that everyone here enjoys it in Chattanooga and tells and brings, a dozen friends to take part in our songwriting track. Just a little plug for that. Thank you guys all for being panelists. Lee and Worth, thank you. And everyone at the leadership, IBMA leadership. What are we? We're alumni, right?
Leadership Bluegrass alumni.
We're alumni.
542 strong.
What a fantastic fraternity to be a part of. I'm honored. And my wife was in this year. Although, Amanda, I'm pretty sure last year was the best class ever.
Oh, now.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank y'all.
And
thanks, everyone. Thanks to you, Mike. And this will go up on the IBMA YouTube channel here in a few days and be a resource for other songwriters. Please feel free to share to folks you know and others in the business.
Fantastic.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good afternoon.
Nice to see everybody. Thank you.
Bye.